Hello, thank you for tuning into the main menu. I am your host, Michelle, and joining me today on the show is Mary Schmalling, and she is the owner of the Eye of Henna. So please welcome Mary to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mary is an incredible henna artist, and she is going to be, you'll get to see her do some henna art on me, and we're going to start that in a little bit. But before we get to that, I'd like to have Mary tell us a little bit about herself.
Sure.
Mary?
I'm a Mendi artist. Mendi is the word for the art form of doing the art of henna, using the plant of henna. So you might hear henna tattoo or getting henna done, but it's also called Mendi. And I've been practicing that art form for going on 18 years now.
Wow.
And I started when I was around 22, and I picked up the art because I saw it in a magazine, and it was actually like on Madonna, and I thought it was really beautiful. And I didn't know anything about the art. I just saw it and I thought, that is just incredible. I've never seen anything like that, and I want to learn more about it. And there was no information out there. The internet really wasn't kind of up and running and giving any kind of Wikipedia or anything like that.
It wasn't around yet.
So I went to the library to research like anything like a National Geographic or books about India or Africa to try to figure out how to even practice this art form. And it took a lot of trial and error. I went down to like a natural food store where they sold henna in bulk for doing hair henna and dyeing the hair.
Oh, okay.
And would practice mixing it myself, and it never came out right. And it was very messy. But I was determined for some reason, so I never really stopped wanting to get the results that I saw. Like, it just never was that. And so I was, really confident that if I stick with this, I'm going to get those results. And I just started doing it on friends and myself, and it took about 3 months for me to learn how to mix it, and I just thought, I'm tired of drawing on myself. I need somebody else to practice on, and made a little flyer. And a store owner in Portland contacted me and said, I would like you to do this out of my store like one day a week if you're interested. And
Fabulous.
I was like, why not?
Good practice.
And here I am 18 years later.
Wow, and obviously you fell in love because 18 years later you're doing it again.
I am.
So it's a labor of love.
It is. I think it's a really amazing way to work as an artist. So I came to Maine from New York and went to Mecca to get my degree in fine arts. And using this plant, which henna is, to draw on the skin is a way for me to like express my art form. And there's so many ways to use henna, so it's really a very creative process that's always changing. It's always new.
Now you had mentioned mixing. What does it come from? What is it?
So henna is a natural plant.
Okay.
It's an herbal plant, and it only grows in really warm climates like Africa and in India and Pakistan. And it's kind of like a hydrangea tree. It's like a bush.
Oh, okay.
And they take the leaves and they grind them up into a super fine powder. And then you mix that powder with like an acid like lemon juice and eucalyptus oil. And that activates the dye release of the plant, which has this natural, beautiful staining quality.
Wow, so it's all natural. There's no chemicals, there's no dyes. It's completely natural.
Yep, it is, and it's one of the few natural dyes that are out there that are safe for the skin. And actually, since it's like a medicinal plant, it can heal problems with the skin, so cuts and wounds and sores and dry skin. So it's really like a good, healthy product to use.
Now, what was the traditional uses of henna? Now, was it meant to be drawn on the skin, or was it used as something else prior to finding out that it could do something like that?
That's a really good question. The thing about henna that most people don't realize is that it dates back 5,000 years. Wow. So it has been used by the Egyptians, and that's where it first originated from. And you might see like on some cave drawings like you know, and the pyramid drawings, like women that have hands that are red or their feet have like red lines on them. And they used henna like almost like an everyday product, like we would use soap or shampoo, because they would use it to help them be cool, because there's also a natural cooling ability to henna, which lowers the body temperature.
Interesting.
So when they were in the desert, they would put it in their hair and on their bottoms of their feet and on the the palms of the hand, because those are the extremities that regulate heat. So it would keep them cool when they travel through the desert.
Huh. Well, that's really interesting.
And then they realized, well, this is actually leaving a stain, so maybe we can make patterns. And they use sticks, you know, to start doing really primal patterns.
Okay.
So,
Now, eventually, did those signs and patterns become symbolic to India or wherever they might have been from? Or is there symbolism to some of the drawings that come out?
there are, in India, like, henna migrated with the nomads. So from Egypt, it moved throughout Africa, North Africa and Morocco, and then moved into India. And it's really amazing because the way that they use the plant is, it's ceremonial. And so for most, you know, special occasions, like it's used for weddings or births, marriages, blessings, religious holidays. But in India, when it moved and migrated, for the women, they could grow this plant in the backyard, and it was accessible to them. And it was considered like the poor woman's jewelry. And it was because women that couldn't afford to buy gold for their wedding, because usually you'll see beautiful golden bangles and really, you know, intricate decoration for weddings. Women that couldn't afford that, they would draw on their hands like lace gloves with the henna, so it looked like they were beautifully adorned.
Wow.
And then the symbolism that within the patterns range from making a blessing for that bride, making her feel like her wedding is going to be honored and sacred, and there's different symbolism between Africa and India. There's different things that will be drawn.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful.
It is.
So there's a lot of meaning behind it, and over the years it's become popular as an art form.
Like in the last 20 years.
Last 20 years.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you want to get started on
Sure.
my henna, and I'll ask some questions as we go along and about it. You're going to start with a little design.
Sure. I'm going to do a design. When I was in India, I watched a lot of henna get done in the marketplace, and a lot of the artists were men that I saw, which I was like, wow, because it's typically known as a women's art form, but the men that were there that I saw were amazing artists, and they had lines of girls waiting to get henna done. And so they do this typical floral pattern that will kind of move up from these two fingers.
Okay.
So when I'm drawing, like, I have to leave some space for the henna to come out because it's like a mud.
Okay.
And if I drag it along the skin, I'm not going to give it room for it to come out. And it has to be somewhat thick so it can sink into your hand and into the top two layers of the skin.
Are there different applicators that you use, like this tube here?
Yeah, I have this one here, and actually this is like a printmaking bottle. And I also have a henna cone. These are hand rolled, and this is something that you might find like that you could buy pre-made. And it's interesting because when I was traveling in India and I met this woman who taught me some henna skills, I had asked her about her mixing process of henna. And she had never mixed henna in her whole life because it was available to her, like just like going to get oranges or bananas in the market, just fresh henna.
Great. How long does it take to usually mix from? Is it usually the powder base that you receive it in?
I receive it in the powder form, and then it takes a while for it to process. Once I mix the dry powder, I can't use this mud for over 24 hours. It needs time for it to kind of dye release and for it to activate. So once I mix it with the lemon juice and the oils, I need to let it sit for at least an overnight process, and then I'm able to use it the next day.
How long do you need to let it sit for it to have that staining?
So right now, like when we're done here, you know, you kind of need to stay still and not use your hand and move it around so much.
Okay.
Because, you know, our skin is flexible, and if you can keep your hand still, it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes to dry.
Okay.
But then you're going to leave this on for about 20 minutes. Not 20 minutes, you're going to leave it on for 4 to 6 hours.
Oh, okay.
The longer you leave it on, the darker the stain will be.
Okay.
And then it actually, so it looks kind of like wet and green right now. And as it dries, it becomes kind of brown, and it will start to crust. And then it'll crumble off naturally throughout the day. And then underneath it, you'll see like an orange stain. And that orange stain then turns into like a deeper reddish brown stain over the course of 48 hours.
It's kind of amazing how that happens with just a plant and just some lemon juice and oil.
It is pretty fascinating. And I think the thing that's beautiful is that, you know, we're using something from the earth to decorate, and it's already got this beautiful natural ability to adorn the skin in a temporary way. So even people that are thinking about getting a tattoo, they may try it in henna first, just to try it out.
That's a great. So if someone who doesn't have a tattoo and they're thinking about it, yeah, it's a great way to kind of figure out if it's something. Yeah.
So the henna actually will stay on the skin, the design, for almost 2 weeks.
Okay. Now I'm noticing you said it'll leave like a reddish orange stain. Are other colors able to be derived from the henna plant, or can you make other colors?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
People have tried to mix henna with different types of dyes, but there's not really a lot of natural dyes out there that kind of work with changing the base color of henna. Okay. There's another type of plant-based dye that's out there called woad, but that's something that they use more like in Celtic regions, and it leaves like a bluish green stain. And then there's another type of plant-based dye that's called hiagua, and it's like a blackish bluish ink that you might see different tribal people using from the Amazon.
Oh, okay. Now, are there some parts of the body that take to henna better than others?
Yeah, definitely. So henna reacts to heat, so that's why mostly people do their hands. When you do the palms of the hand, it reacts stronger because that's where all the heat source comes out, and it's also where the skin is the thinnest. So henna will stain the darkest usually on the palm of the hand, and if you were to do like a shoulder or the back, it doesn't take as deep because the skin is thicker.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Now, doing your henna work, you travel a lot. You want to tell us where it's taken you and...
Sure. Well, when I was younger, you know, I traveled a lot to different festivals pretty much across the U.S. So I've been, you know, to Mardi Gras, down in New Orleans, and did henna down there. I go to New York a lot, in Boston, Connecticut, New Hampshire, like all across New England, and even into Canada. And I do probably about 12 major events a year, like doing festivals where I do travel within the state of Maine and, you know, in New England. But a lot of my clients come to me. I have a home-based studio where I travel to them as well, which can take me all over the state, like
Excellent.
even up to like Blue Hill, Deer Isle.
Great. So anyone at home watching and you are interested in having some henna done, Mary's information will be put on the screen throughout the show and during the end credits.
Some people, will do henna to celebrate just a change in someone's life, whether they're having a baby or they're getting married or it's a special birthday number, or they just want to do something special with their girlfriends.
With your traveling, do you find that henna is more popular in certain parts of the U.S. or
Definitely.
where are you finding it to be growing a lot faster?
Well, I mean, if you were to go down to Florida, near the beaches, there's probably like a henna stand, every few blocks.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And in California as well. I traveled out to California, to LA, and there was like henna booths, like staggered. And I did that when I first started doing henna because there was no henna artists around. And I was like, I really just want to meet some other people that do this art form. And what I did is I went from one henna booth to the next, and so they continued the pattern. Each artist did a little something, so I could see like their style and how they would draw and use the henna plant. But a lot of places that are touristy might have a henna booth. And one thing that I do say is that you really do need to be careful, and you need to ask when you're getting a henna design to make sure that it is all natural, because there are dyes out there that people want to get something that looks like a real tattoo and they want a black ink, but it really is a chemical that can hurt the skin and harm the skin.
Oh, okay.
So you should ask if it's natural
So
henna.
someone who knows they have sensitive skin and are about to get a henna tattoo, then it's still a good idea to ask because they might be using something that might work against.
Yeah,
their
and
skin.
even like if you were traveling in Africa, and even when I was in India and I got my henna done, they put acids within the henna to actually activate it to be darker. Even things like gasoline or kerosene.
Really?
Or just like some acid dyes that would actually make the henna last for months and months. Or they'll use black hair dye that will stain the skin for 3 months, but it's not henna. But people don't know that because they don't think to ask, and they could get a potentially burn on their skin. So making sure that the henna is natural and safe, so you can have this healing experience and beautiful way to have this art form on your body.
Yes. You had mentioned that henna can also be used for hair color.
Yeah, it can be.
How does that work?
Well, henna penetrates the hair, and it is like a thick mud. So it takes like about 4 hours to do. So you wrap your hair, you get it wet, and you mix up this mud, and you let it sit, and then you wrap it up with a hot towel, and it will cover gray naturally. So I think a lot of people that want to not do like stripping their hair or dyeing their hair, they're turning towards henna products because it is all natural. It actually helps the hair become healthier, stronger, shinier. And you can also see henna in a lot of different beauty products, like within shampoos, because it does strengthen the hair.
So there are many uses for henna.
There are.
Other than hair and
Well, you can dye fabrics with henna, and you can also use it just to do decorations, like on wood or canvas, different crafts.
does your son, does he dabble a little bit with it or?
He used to. I teach workshops at schools, and I have the kids practice themselves, and I think when I did that at one of his schools, he was really proud, and he picked up the henna bottle and started drawing. And the kids love to practice, being creative on their skin, and it's very fun for them to be, playful and express themselves.
Absolutely. And what better way through art?
Definitely.
So what inspires you? What motivates you to keep doing henna?
I would probably say the interactions with people that I sit with.
Yeah.
And I get the opportunity to be a part of someone's really sacred event in their life. So when I meet a bride for the first time and their family, and I get to share in their special day and do something and add some beauty, it's really special. And when I'm doing a pregnant belly, like I get to sit there with this mother who is about to, her life is going to change, and to be a part of that's really amazing.
It's special.
It is, and I meet wonderful people, and it's just really a great way for me to continue to work with this plant and have it be a part of my life and have it continually be shared. Because the thing about henna, this art form hasn't even been photographed for the last 100 years. So we have like, let's say more than 4,000 years of this art form that's never been documented. So all these patterns and different ways of using this plant is like lost history. So by continuing to honor the history of henna and making it an educational thing for people to learn about, we're also like bringing it to the light.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like resurrecting it.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
You like it?
I do. I love it.
And sometimes, there's like some of the symbols that you were asking me about. In India, they'll do the peacock. They'll use that for representing wisdom to the marriage. And it's also their national bird. And sometimes they'll do portraits of the groom and the wife in the henna design.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll also hide the initials of the groom in the bride's henna design, where it's a game where she has to try to find within the henna design his initials.
That is cute.
Yeah.
I like that.
And plus women get to not do housework. Yes, you heard me correct.
Go get henna now, ladies. No.
They can't do dishes with this stuff.
Yeah,
They get to
that's
get
true.
doted upon and taken care of.
Maybe we should do the other hand, too.
Yes. I think we should.
Now your phone's going to be ringing off the hook from all these ladies wanting to have henna done on their hands so they can escape.
Have a little break.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing that you'll see, like, especially in Indian weddings, like the henna can take up to 4 to 6 hours to do this really beautiful, intricate work that goes like up to the elbows. And a woman can't do anything after that, so she gets fed. Yeah, and
Going on to the next hand. Woohoo! I hope my husband's watching because I want to go home and get fed after this.
I'll do your thumb.
Okay. Now, when you do a pregnant woman's belly, that's considered a belly blessing?
Yeah, and it's really nice for women to honor their body changing, and henna is just kind of like another way to express that and take time out to honor the body shifting through the different trimesters. Some women, they'll do like a belly cast, or they'll get like some beautiful pictures taken of them, but it's really nice to kind of bless the body and kind of like draw something that's really honoring that time in their life.
I think that sounds magical. Now, I've seen pictures where you've also done women's heads.
Yeah, I have. Well, women and men that have gone through treatment for chemo and are going through treatment for their cancer or any illness. When they lose their hair, they might come to me if they want to adorn their head. And
I think that's beautiful.
it's a really wonderful experience to be able to give a sense of calm and stillness in creating a piece of art for them on their head, as they probably have got a lot on their plate dealing with sickness. And so being able to adorn them and give them that moment to give back to themselves is really a wonderful thing to do.
And you had sent in some pictures which we'll at the end of you hennaing,
Hennaing, yeah.
hennaing my other hand, we can bring those up, and I believe some of those pictures have some of Mary's work on the crowns and on bellies as well. They're beautiful. So when you come up with the design, what inspires you as far as coming up with the design, or do you just kind of let it flow?
I usually let it flow, but I think because I've done it for so many years, there's natural like patterns that just come out from doing it over and over again. But usually the inspiration, is from looking at books that I've seen, or even textiles, or clothing, or repeated patterns. And there's really, unless someone's picking something out of a book, they're all original, and no two are alike. So,
Like snowflakes.
yeah.
Do you find that people will come to you with ideas, or they just let you kind of just be creative?
Yeah, they will. A lot of people might have a concept and want to see it in henna on their skin first because they've always wanted this image on their body. Or, also to empower themselves and let them have time to reflect on that part of their body wherever they put it, to give energy to it. Because the plant, once we mix it, it's like kind of coming back to life, and it's like only on the skin for a couple of weeks. It gives somebody that time to kind of reflect on that part of their body, Even after I do henna on someone, they kind of use their body differently, like, oh, wow, I feel kind of really beautiful. So it shifts their energy and the way that they look at themselves. So the imagery that they use can also make them feel a little bit more, empowered.
Most definitely. I can see that more, especially with the bellies and the crowns.
Yeah, and feeling beautiful, just beautifying the body and allowing the art to accentuate that.
It's beautiful. What are some of the fairs that you tend to be at for henna?
I do the Common Ground Fair up in
Okay.
Unity every year, which is, really a fun time because everybody's out and about looking at the cows and the horses, and it's a beautiful outdoor festival, and I'm set back in the garden, so it's really a beautiful experience. I've been there, I think, going on 14 years, so that's really fun. And I do the Machias Blueberry Festival, which is way up north. And so that's always like a beautiful journey to go up the coast and, see a town just like celebrate blueberries. And I called them today. I was like, oh, I got to send in my application. They're like, yes, you do, because we need you. We cannot not have the henna artist up here.
Aw. Now, do you find that when you do the fairs, you see a lot of people that you recognize from maybe the year before?
Oh, yeah. Especially at the Common Ground Fair, I have some folks that come by and they're like, you're the only reason why we come here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
What a good feeling.
Amazing. And they're like, this is like our thing. We do it every year. And the thing that's crazy is if I have people that have come with their children and they're now grown-ups. And I'm like,
Really?
oh my God, like I saw them when they were like 2 and 3, and now they're like 15, 16, 17 years old.
Wow. That's rewarding.
It is. It's really wonderful. And it's nice to make people smile.
Absolutely. If you can make someone smile and brighten up their day in any way, why not?
Yeah. So, do you want to do something on these fingertips as well?
I think that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah?
It's gorgeous. Sure. Why not? Now, when you're doing henna, is there a particular design that you enjoy doing more than others?
I really like doing freehand designs because it gives me the ability to create on the spot. And sometimes I don't always get that opportunity, but some people, when they just trust and say, hey, I know you've been doing this, so just go for it. And sometimes I usually get a better result because I'm more involved. Like I don't have to just stare at a pattern and just try to recreate it. Like if they give me a concept, then I can just let it kind of bloom and
Yes.
be created in the moment. So, and when I'm working on a belly, it's kind of like one of the few times I have like a bigger canvas to work on, so I can draw bigger designs.
How is it with doing a belly and the baby moving? Have you come up like with issues with having to stop for a little bit because the baby's kicking or moving?
Yeah, yeah. I actually had one of my most active henna belly sessions this past week, and the baby was moving so much that I actually couldn't draw. So I had to stop. We watched. We would laugh. I would draw a little bit more movement, and like until I said, usually the babies move a lot when I draw, and then like I got a little like kick in the belly, and so it was really kind of humorous.
That's neat. It kind of tickles a little bit, especially on the fingers.
It does have like a slight tingling sensation too. But that's the natural cooling element that you feel of the henna. That's the healing properties of the henna.
Now, can it be used today still as a cooling?
Yes, and so people even that have eczema or their skin is sensitive, henna can heal and be very soothing to the skin.
Oh, that's good to know. I don't think a lot of people are aware that henna has all these other uses other than just the body art.
Right. It is tricky for me to like move around and like not bump it. That's always, to be careful that I don't smush the henna.
Do you find that both men and women will get the henna, or is it predominantly women?
Some men will get henna done. When I was in India, a lot of them would get it done like more as, a form of tattoo and get something, more modern, not like henna style. They also will get it done for the wedding, for a ceremony, but usually it's just either something in the palm or like a circular pattern, or sometimes they'll actually just do it one pinky.
Okay.
So what men do it, and then in America, I think men, it's a really great option for them to try before getting a permanent tattoo and giving it a trial. Because there is something really soothing about getting henna done, and sometimes
it is very calming. I feel very relaxed.
it's the magic in the henna.
And the person doing it, you're very calming too and relaxing.
I'll try. All right, so I think we're done.
This looks beautiful. I'm sure they're getting a good shot of it, but
so this one right here that we did before, like it's almost dry. But it's tacky, so like tacky to the touch.
Okay.
But it still takes about 10 more minutes for that to dry and set.
Okay.
And then you're going to leave it. This is really wet, so if I was to touch this right now, it would smush and the design would not be so pretty.
Okay.
And I'd have to fix it. But so once this dries, it also kind of flattens out, and you can kind of see how this one's a little bit darker and this one's kind of wet. And so you'll leave that on the skin, and within the next 2 days, you'll have this beautiful reddish brown stain, and you can protect it like when you shower or if you go to do the dishes in the next 2 days.
In 2 days.
You can put like a Vaseline on it or olive oil or just a natural oil base that will help water bead off of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if you were like a swimmer, like you would want to protect it with like Vaseline, because like chlorine would lift it, or being in pools or hot tubs and stuff like that.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
It does. It looks awesome. We're going to move on to some pictures that Mary had brought in. So whenever you're ready, right over there on the screen.
Yeah, that was a beautiful belly that I did last summer, and the client was just wanting to adorn herself. And when I'm with the women that are getting the bellies done, it's really this sacred time where we think about imagery that they want to bless their baby with, and also just themselves, just to feed their bodies like back some beautiful energy. And sometimes there's a lot of energy like flowers, plants, the tree of life, you know, pretty much natural elements where we can create like a mandala imagery around the belly. And then I get to photograph them, so I get to use my skills.
Nice.
I have my, my degree in photography
Yes.
from art school, and this is a great way for me to like photograph not only the drawing, but to photograph the women in a really beautiful way that's expressive, so they can have that, to reflect on like years down the road. And it's nice when, I'm doing it and the family's there. So whether like, this image here, like her daughter is holding her belly as well.
Beautiful, yeah.
And so it really can be a really beautiful moment for them to share together.
Now that's beautiful. A necklace type?
Yeah,
it's
so
gorgeous.
it's a feather motif. And the great thing about using this body art, it allows you to be expressive. So if a woman wanted to like go out and they have a beautiful dress, like if they're going to a show or a dance, like, or going out on a vacation for a couple weeks, they can do something really creative and expressive. Now that's like a traditional hand design that you might see like for a wedding.
In India?
Yep, and you can see the richness of the color there. It's like a deepish red brown, kind of like a crimson. And you can see it shifts colors as you move away from the heat of the hand. It turns into more of a brown color.
And that's because of the heat.
And it's because of the heat.
Interesting.
Yep. And that is a henna crown that I designed for a beautiful woman. And just to photograph her in the moment to honor her.
How long would it take to do something like that? To do a crown?
Yeah, like an hour.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
not bad.
About an hour, hour and a half. So I also do my designs on walls and in interiors. So using the patterns that I've learned throughout the years and creating motifs for walls and homes and businesses. And it's really a way that I can have my art actually then become more permanent. So,
Yes.
because once this is gone, it's gone in 2 weeks. And if I don't photograph it, what I drew is completely gone. So to do it on walls, and this is in a yoga studio up north.
Beautiful.
It also, what I've noticed after doing these murals, I'll have people come back to me and say, wow, this art while I'm doing yoga or while I'm in the room, like I'm feeling different, and it makes me like, reflect upon myself. And it's really nice to be able to change rooms and
Yes.
give it a design. That's from India on the street. That's Rangoli, and it's a sand powder design, but it's very henna inspired. You can see how like the art form really kind of plays off of, patterns and things that are around that people create, and then you can use henna to remember certain patterns that you see, whether it was in textiles or in another art form, or if it was in a temple in India.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, so this woman actually gave me the concept. She's like, I love ginkgo leaves, so go for it. Anything with a ginkgo leaf. And so we took the base pattern of the ginkgo leaf, and then I used the henna accents to really explore how to make it grow.
Now, when you're painting the murals, is it henna as well?
It is actually just like house paint.
Oh,
So
okay.
I use, paints, and usually some people have other paint colors that they already have from their home. So I'm using, colors that would match, and we kind of do a consult. And so it's natural, like just in the aspect of using the patterns that I've learned that are henna inspired. That's when I was in India. And I got to go to this woman's home who's a henna artist. She had been doing henna as long as I had. She taught me everything that she had known and brought materials to the session. And she drew patterns for me on paper, and her daughter would trace her hand on the piece of paper, and then she drew patterns for me, which was really neat.
Yeah.
That was really hard to do.
So after a while,
Yeah, that was my first ceiling that I ever did. And next time I might have staging. But it was really a learning experience, and really so much fun to create something on the ceiling. And I was like, I wish I had this in my house.
great color too.
It was really fun.
Beautiful.
It's really fun to be able to play with color and space. And that's in a private studio in someone's home. And it was their office. So they said, I just want something that's going to make me feel great when I'm in here. And, she said, do it around the window, and that's what we came up with.
It's gorgeous.
That was from on a train that I was in Mumbai, and when I went to India, it was my goal to photograph women. Whoever I saw that had henna on, I would stop and I said, "Would you mind if I would photograph you?" Of course, I didn't know how to speak Hindi, but I had my camera. And so that one was on the train, and she had just got that done. And it's really a beautiful pattern.
It really is.
Those are my own feet that I got done for my birthday when I was in India. That was the woman that I went to her house. She did that henna on my feet. And those are kind of like typical patterns that you might see.
Real intricate.
Very intricate, yep. And that took about an hour just to do my feet, like a half an hour for each foot. That's another mural that I did at a beautiful yoga studio in Waterville, and it was an old church. So I got to kind of be in this beautiful space that was a church and create for their yoga studio. And that is up at the top of a temple in Rajasthan. I climbed up and hiked up to the top, and all of a sudden there was all these women there in their saris, and they were just full of color, and I was like, oh, they all have henna on. And so they had just come from a wedding. So I had them all put their hands together so I could photograph
Sweet.
their henna. That was my first mural that I ever did. And
That's great.
I've been doing murals now for about 3 years.
Really?
Yep, and so it's really kind of fun to play in space with color and designs and create that with the people in their space.
Your work's amazing.
Oh,
It really is.
thank you.
Very inspiring.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Well, I think that's our time for today. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we close the show?
No, just thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoy the henna,
I did.
and
It's beautiful.
may it give you a blessing for the next 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Mary.
You're welcome, Michelle.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everyone at home, thank you so much for watching. And again, if you're interested in having some beautiful work done, Mary's information will be on the screen. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.